Our lakes are known for abundant fishing, boating, wildlife, and beautiful scenery. On this episode, we'll take a look at some fun recreational opportunities available on and around the Great Lakes of Georgia.
Funding for Georgia Outdoors has been made possible by a grant from Mary Hall Singleton and by the Imlay Foundation.
Some of the best scenery in Georgia can be found around our lakes. From the undeveloped shores of Carter's Lake in the Blue Ridge Mountains to the busy waters of Lake Sidney Lanier just outside Atlanta, these bodies of water provide fun and enjoyment for millions of people every year. But unlike the Great Lakes of the North, Georgia's larger lakes did not form naturally. In fact, no large natural lakes exist in Georgia. But we do have many large reservoirs. Reservoirs are the result of damming a river. Dams control the flow of water along many of our rivers. The water that collects behind the dam forms a lake. Most of Georgia's larger reservoirs were built by the Army Corps of Engineers.
Several of the Army Corps of Engineers lakes were authorized in the late 1940s after World War II. Congress passed the Rivers and Harbors Act of 1946, basically putting the Army Corps of Engineers in charge of the nation's waterways. Lake Lanier, as well as some of the other reservoirs, were put into effect for hydropower, for navigation, and for flood control. And of course, other purposes ended up following along with that would be water quality and supply, and fish and wildlife management, and one that most people know the lakes for today, and that's recreation.
Though recreation wasn't the original purpose in building these reservoirs, people flocked to them year-round. Lake Sidney Lanier is one of Georgia's most used and best-known reservoirs.
Lake Lanier is in North Georgia. It's a 39,000-acre lake. In the two main tributaries that come into it are the Chattahoochee River and the Chestatee River. We have over 7.5 million visitors each year coming to the parks to have fun, to picnic, to water ski.
Because of the wind that cuts across the expansive water here, this lake is one of the most popular sailing destinations in Georgia. And who knows better than the Lake Lanier Sailing Club, one of the oldest sailing clubs on the lake. Today is the annual Reggae Regatta, one of the many races the club hosts each year.
Reggae Regatta really started out to be part of a charity project, and it still continues to do that. Started on Friday night with a pre-registration and party to get everybody pumped up and get everybody excited. Then everybody else came in this morning for the skipper's meeting, and that gives you all of your instructions for the racing for the day.
Welcome to the annual Lake Lanier Sailing Club Reggae Regatta. Thanks for coming out. It's all about you guys.
Racing events like this bring out sailors from across the state.
We have over 150 boats this year, and we're absolutely thrilled because each one of those boats, they all carry 6 to 10 people per boat. So you can imagine what that means when you multiply the numbers out.
Lanier's a great place to sail because it's, it's open water, it's beautiful water, it's deep water.
Before the races begin, wind direction and speed are closely monitored. While the officials watch the weather, the racers wait for the starting gun.
The race committee will go out and see from what direction the wind is coming. Typically, you want the boats to have their first leg of the course going towards the wind. Now, a sailboat cannot sail directly into the wind, so that makes it challenging.
Okay, good luck.
As a chief judge, my job is to just sort of make sure that all of the on-the-water things go very smoothly. I'm out observing the conditions, making sure if there are any problems, they get fixed.
Once the race begins, the sailors take off quickly. Sailing requires a serious team effort. The teams move fast and employ some dazzling techniques.
The racing boats have what's called a spinnaker. Those are those big, colorful, pretty sails that they use going away from the wind. It's a team sport that is not a contact sport. It does not require strength. As a woman, and I race sailboats, one of the things is I know that I can be as good as any man on the course because it's a mental sport more than a physical sport. It's sort of like playing chess.
Sailing isn't just a sport for adults. Small-scale boats offer kids a chance to get involved too.
Lake Lanier Sailing Club is proud to have a very, very large and very active junior fleet. We had two types of boats racing. One are the Optimus prams, which are referred to as the Opties. And then the other type of boats were called 420s. The Optimus prams are, I believe, 8 feet long, and that's where the little, the young children start out. And we've had some very, very good sailors start out in the Opti fleet.
From pint-sized boats like these to luxury yachts, wind-powered vessels come in many forms. Today's regatta also includes a race for the bigger boats, the cruising fleet. These boats follow a much longer route than the others. We tagged along with skipper Michael McLeod and his crew.
Watch your paw, guys, on the jib. The crew has now been together in entirety for a year and a half. We're very diverse as far as even countries. We have somebody from Brazil, we have somebody from England. When you sail in the ocean or sail on a lake, you still have to have that team effort. So why don't we run a new line up under the lifeline?
I grew up in England, in northern England. Well, when we moved down here, we went, found a house and came up to look for sailing, and we met a group of people. This is the club on the lake that does the most racing.
Flavio, 50 feet.
Sailing over distances involves following the wind. To do this, the crew periodically must adjust the sail to harness the full power of the wind as it changes direction.
April, I need you to crank
direction. When the skipper calls the order, the team acts quickly.
It may have shifted enough that we don't need the pole, but let's once you get it there, let it forward, let it way forward.
There's so many different facets on the boat, all the different sails, pulling the sails up, pulling them down, shifting them from side to side on the boat. If you've got the timing down right, it's a lot easier. Obviously the skipper has to be able to rely on his crew to trim the sails correctly and be on the high side of the boat if it's heeling too much, on the low side if it's not heeling enough. It's one of the true team sports.
Sailing lingo is also important.
A jibe is when the back end of the boat goes through the eye of the wind and your main goes across. And a tack is when the bow of the boat goes through the eye of the wind. So if you're tacking, you just go back and forth. If you're beating to weather, you go one side of the wind to the other side of the wind. On Lanier, it seems to be more important to go where the velocity is. You go where the most wind is. So it appears sometimes that you may actually sail a much longer course by going to where the wind is, but you'll be much faster.
The team pulls ahead early on and maintains their lead. They win the race for their division, the first over the finish line. After the races are finished, the club hosts a dinner and entertainment back on the mainland. While sailing Lake Lanier is fun and exciting, sailing, and particularly racing, requires training. If you want to get started, there are plenty of clubs on Lake Lanier to help.
The place I would go would be to a website called www.lakelaniersailing.com. All of the clubs on the lake are listed on that website.
You don't have to have a boat to ride the wind on Georgia's lakes. Wind surfing is a growing pastime. If you're interested in learning the basics, instructor Chuck Harden will be glad to help. He runs Whitecap Windsurfing, a small windsurf gear and instruction company on Clarks Hill Lake near Augusta.
Ever since I was a little kid, I really wanted to be a surfer. I saw those guys on the waves. I wanted to be out in the ocean on the waves surfing. And I just always lived inland near this big lake here in Augusta, Georgia. And I said, wait a minute, that's windsurfing, surfing. I can do that. I can windsurf right here at the lake. The wind is pushing on the sail and just weather vaning the sail downwind. Any other board sport, there's one sort of balance going on. It's you on the board. In windsurfing, you've really got three kinds of balance going on. It's you on the board, it's getting that sail up and keeping it up there balanced, but then you also got to balance the angle of the sail to create lift. So what I do is I use a simulator that's up on land. It's a bracket up on land with a pivot, and that gives everyone a chance to be on a solid surface and work on getting the sail up and getting it balanced. There you go. Does he see it now? Yeah.
I wanted to try something new, and I thought about windsurfing, but I've never actually seen anybody windsurfing in person. I've only seen it, on TV shows, and I was very surprised that Georgia had it. I was thinking maybe up in the Chesapeake Bay area or on the coastline I'd find something, but not on a lake in Georgia.
Out on the open water. There's no rocks, there's no pine cones, so you don't have those reference points. You tend to be looking down, so it's hard to sense when you come all the way around other than becoming aware of that wind behind your back and sort of feeling that.
Before these new windsurfers can take to the lake, they must demonstrate balance on the board.
Put people out on a board by them without a sail at first, so they get the feel of balancing on a board. Then I can bring the sail out to the board, which I have anchored to the bottom of the lake at first, get them to see what it feels like to get the sail up and put it all together. When I feel like they've got it all put together, all three parts, I take them loose from that anchor on the bottom of the lake and off they go. Not fast on the first day, because usually we don't have a lot of wind in the summertime, and if they did, they wouldn't be able to handle it. So it's going slow the first day, but they get all of the basic tools they need to take the sport from there.
I started like a month ago. I'm trying to keep out my kids from television, so I'm trying to find them some fun stuff to do.
I hadn't really heard of windsurfing all that much until my dad started doing it, and I found it was fun, so we went a couple times a week ago, and then we came here. It's nice that it doesn't use up any other energy than just the wind, and you're kind of standing there, it pushes you along.
The most common reaction I get is they're shocked and surprised how well they do. They exceed their expectations about how well they do. It's not as hard as they thought it was going to be, and they're very pleased, and so they're excited with their experience. There you go, good job, now you got it.
It was really nice to hear why it actually works and know it before I got on the water.
I loved it. It was great. It was better than I thought it would be. I was a little apprehensive coming into it, not having the experience or anything, but he's absolutely just a great instructor, just fantastic instructor, and guaranteed we'd be up and sailing, and we were, so I was very happy with it. Yeah, I'm going to talk to Chuck and see when I can come out again, and I think this might be my sport.
In a lot of ways, it's safer and easier to windsurf on a lake. A lot of issues in the ocean, tides and things that can happen that you don't have to worry about on the lake. Clarks Hill Lake here is particularly well suited. I know everybody that windsurfs in the state, and they'll all tell you this is the most user-friendly lake for windsurfing.
39 miles long and with 1,200 miles of shoreline, Clarks Hill Lake, known to South Carolinians as Lake Strom-Thurmond, is the largest man-made lake east of the Mississippi. There are two other reservoirs located on the Savannah River, Lake Richard B. Russell and Lake Hartwell. As the backwaters of these reservoirs were filled, land that was once inhabited became submerged. Georgia's lakes contain a number of sunken cities. Bobby Brown State Park on Clarks Hill Lake is located at the site of what was once Petersburg, a city built on the tobacco and cotton trade.
Petersburg was established in 1786. It was a prime spot for a town because it was at the confluence of the Broad and Savannah rivers. You go out to look at Petersburg now, you think there's not much left of it. But in reality, there is a whole lot to Petersburg left. It's just under your feet or under the water.
Allatoona Lake, northwest of Atlanta, also holds great history. Beneath these waters lie the remains of Etowah, a city built on the iron industry.
The old town of Etowah had been a flourishing town in the 1800s and had been burned during the Civil War by Sherman's troops on his march to Atlanta. There's no sign of it anymore except for an iron furnace that is on the National Historic Register. Iron Works had employed 4,000 people. It was owned by Mark Cooper, who was also one of the major people in Georgia to bring in the Western and Atlantic Railroad to this area.
On the banks of Allatoona Lake, Red Top Mountain State Park offers swimming, hiking, and other activities. To honor the history of the area, the park hosts regular iron pour demonstrations, allowing visitors to relive what was once a way of life here.
We have a replica of an iron furnace here on the site and a casting shed. Due to this area was the name of Red Top coming from the iron ore. The public, they can buy scratch blocks and they can scratch whatever they want to into the block, and then when we pour the melted iron into the block and it hardens, then they've got a souvenir that they can take home. But it's a real exciting program because it deals with fire, and the furnace gets up to about 3,000 degrees heat. Neat to see, especially at night when you see the flames shooting out of the top of the furnace, probably 15 feet off the ground.
Allatoona is also the site of a major Civil War battle.
The Battle of Allatoona Pass was fought here in 1864 on October 5th. This was not some small affair. It was a half-day battle where several thousand casualties were involved in this battle. You can still see the entrenchments that the Union Army built. One of the best things to see at the battlefield would be the pass itself. It's a remarkable thing. Engineering from the 1860s. Dynamite was used, and it's pretty much a cut through the mountain several hundred feet up on each side.
Lake Allatoona draws more than 6 million visitors a year. With this many people passing along its shores, it takes a lot of work to keep the lake clean. In the fall, Allatoona hosts a trash pickup that's grown to attract an average of 5,000 volunteers a year.
This event is a National Public Land Day event. We call it the Great Lake Allatoona Cleanup. We've done it for 20 years. We have 270 miles of shoreline that we're trying to clean up here at Allatoona Lake. When we started in 1986, we collected 36 tons of trash the first year, and now we're on an average of 12 to 13 tons every year. We do see a big difference, and we hope the boaters that come out here during the summer see a big difference too.
All sorts of people come out to help clean up the lake. These Girl Scouts prove that you're never too young to start making a difference.
Well, it's our service project to come out and help clean up, and so we all get together and just get the girls out here and picking up trash, and hopefully they'll remember the next time they're out here not to leave anything.
Trash comes in all shapes and sizes.
Picking up bobbers, beer bottles, beer cans, glass, stuff like that. I just found a big old tire in the lake and I said, I'm gonna get that tire. So, woohoo!
Check and chill.
CO2 cartridge. A toilet! I picked up a shoe. All right, a dirty old shoe. We got that crate.
Good, set her down.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the team I know. Oh, yeah.
The day ends with a party, complete with food, games, and prizes. They even have a prize for the strangest object found.
Second place, who brought the toilet seat?
But the true reward today is leaving Allatoona Lake a cleaner place.
The community loves this lake and they wanted to keep it pristine or at its natural state. And it helps us to have that many volunteers. I think that shows a lot for the lake.
One of the most popular ways to experience Georgia's lakes is by boat. Boating safety is a major concern along our waterways. Here are a few ways you can stay safe. Always wear a life jacket. Remember, flotation devices are required for every passenger on board, and riders under the age of 8 must wear a life jacket at all times. Check the weather before you go out. Be prepared for storms to avoid getting in over your head. Alcohol is involved in about 1/3 of all fatal boating accidents, so don't drink when operating a vessel. Take a boating safety course and pick up a copy of the Georgia Boating Safety Guide. Visit this website for more information on boating safety and boating laws in Georgia.
While lakes such as Allatoona and Lanier are well-traveled and well-known, several of our lakes offer a less developed but no less enjoyable experience. Nestled in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, Carter's Lake is a hidden gem.
Carter's Lake is in northwest Georgia. It's on the Coosawattee River. There are several things actually that are very special about Carter's Lake. Number one, it's the deepest lake in Georgia, and it's over 450 feet deep in its deepest locations, and it averages over 200 feet deep. Also, the dam here is the highest earth and rock-filled dam east of the Mississippi. The thing we think is very special about the lake, though, is that there's no private development on the shoreline. It's a completely pristine, natural environment, and just a real pleasure for people to come and boat and enjoy. Here at Carter's Lake, we have just about any outdoor activity you can think about, and we're very family-oriented. Campgrounds, picnic areas, several boat launching areas, and fishing is real popular here. Gaining in popularity is bird watching.
At any of our lakes, you're bound to encounter a diversity of wildlife. Our reservoirs are particularly good for bird watching. Birds of prey, wading birds, and smaller species all congregate around the water. Along the Chattahoochee River in South Georgia, Lake Walter F. George and Lake Seminole are both stops along the Southern Rivers Birding Trail, a collection of 29 sites in South Georgia determined to be excellent for bird watching.
Lake Walter F. George is on the Chattahoochee River. We're below Eufaula, Alabama. A lot of people are familiar with Lake Eufaula. It's the same area. Congress named it Walter F. George Lake. It's the official name. We have eagles that feed below the dam in the wintertime on a daily basis, sometimes as many as 16 at a time. We have the ospreys. We have the rookeries around the lake. We have cormorants, egrets, herons. Walter F. George Dam attracts a wide variety of birds. There's a lot of fish that get in that area. When the water's lower, they're trapped, and it's easy pickings for the birds. They're attracted by the sound as well, the rushing water, but we do get a lot of them just because it's so easy to catch the fish there.
Another hot spot for birding on the Southern Rivers Birding Trail is Lake Seminole, a reservoir built where the Flint River, the Chattahoochee, and Spring Creek merge to become the Apalachicola River. Throughout the year, you'll find a variety of birds here: eagles, cormorants, and great blue herons, to name a few. But the main wildlife-related activity out on the lake is fishing. We joined fishing guide Randy Weaver for an excursion out on the lake.
Here on Lake Seminole, we've got 38,000 acres of water. We've got 250 islands on it, and our average depth is not but 7.5 foot. I have been fishing this lake now approximately 21 years. I would say primarily people that come here to Lake Seminole and fish with me want to catch largemouth bass. Seminole's kind of known for its catching bass, and a lot of big fish come off Seminole, so people really like to come here and try to catch them a big bass.
It doesn't take long for Randy to hook one of the fish this lake is known for.
There's a fish right there close to the boat. That's all right. Pretty little fish.
Though Lake Seminole is known for bass fishing, there are many other species to angle for in its waters.
We also fish for, people know them as crappie. Here in South Georgia, they call them speckled perch. We've got a lot of those. We've got the bigger variety of them. We have also got the black crappie and the white crappie. We have people that come here and fish for what we call a jackfish here, which is a chain pickerel, a grass pike, and they get to be pretty good size in here. You know, what I like about Lake Seminole is Lake Seminole, 12 months out of the year, a fish can be caught. Even if the bass aren't biting, say your water gets too cold, there's something else that you can always be catching.
Ask an angler why the fishing is so good here, and they'll probably point out the vegetation. One non-native plant that's abundant throughout the lake is hydrilla, an invasive exotic introduced to Lake Seminole in the 1950s. Because this plant spreads like kudzu across the water and can affect oxygen levels and fish populations, biologists from the Department of Natural Resources work to control its spread and conduct regular surveys of fish numbers here.
Hydrilla has become a very hot topic here. Lake Seminole is a very shallow eutrophic lake. It has a lot of nutrients, and therefore it's perfect. The stage is perfect for an exotic species such as hydrilla to really spread. Hydrilla is not necessarily a bad thing, but it grows so fast and it can completely choke out areas. The bass fishermen love it. Bass like to relate to vegetation edges, and it can serve as ambush places for them to capture prey, although too much of a good thing can actually depress the fishery. Too much hydrilla can completely choke out areas of the lake, so we would like to see treatment of hydrilla continue.
The balance between natural ecosystems and our desire to utilize these resources is a delicate one. Built by humans, our reservoirs are managed and maintained for Georgians to use. Whether boating, fishing, or enjoying a beautiful sunset, Georgia's Great Lakes offer many opportunities to get out and enjoy yourself on the water.
Funding for Georgia Outdoors has been made possible by a grant from Mary Hall Singleton and by the Imlay Foundation.